How are you? I want to do a video today, just a summary about the false teachings of dispensationalism. And just kind of, it's going to be a summary, short summary. So people can recognize that something is wrong with any teaching. I talk about dispensationalism a lot. That's because most churches, most evangelical churches, are affected by dispensationalism. Not affected, but poisoned by dispensationalism. So I'm going to give you a little list that you can look at. First one is Antichrist. If you hear anybody talking about Antichrist, and again, I use that word sometimes, try to stay away from it as much as possible, simply because it misleads. We're so used to using that word. And so I have been using that, or I have been used, brainwashed, conditioned to use that word and to think that I know what I'm talking about when I talk about the Antichrist. And in reality, I didn't. I had to do my study. Everybody should be doing that study. I've done a lot of studies on this topic, but if you're new, you need to listen definitely to this video. It's a good summary, and so probably everybody could be benefiting from it. So Antichrist only is mentioned in 1st and 2nd John. It's not mentioned in any other, in the Gospels, in Revelation, even though Revelation is from John. It's not mentioned. It's not mentioned in any way about end times. Why not? Because when we read 1st and 2nd John, especially 1st John 2 and 4, we learn that Antichrist is everybody. Antichrist actually is always addressed in plural. And it doesn't talk about an end times ruler. You can't say, oh, but there are Antichrist or Antichrist spirit, and eventually there's going to be the Antichrist. No. I think if you have that in, again, John, you find that in John, it's a mistranslation. It's never the Antichrist in the original text. It's always Antichrist as in plural form. Everybody who is rejecting Jesus as coming in the flesh is Antichrist. And Antichrist has started even during John's time with this false belief that started during John's time. He said, they were from us, but they came from us, but they were not really from us. So Antichrist, we have all throughout history. Matter of fact, the major people who are Antichrist are the Jews themselves, because they reject Jesus as coming in the flesh, Jesus being Messiah. And when they're talking about coming in the flesh, they're talking about God coming in the flesh, which John said clearly in his gospel. The Word became flesh. This is what he's talking about when he says coming in the flesh. They reject that Jesus Christ is God in human form. And that's it. There is no end times Antichrist. Now many confuse this word Antichrist with the man of sin in 2 Thessalonians 2. And when we really look at the definition of this man of sin and compare it with other players in the Bible, we know that this man of sin is also Babylon the Great, is also the little horn, simply because of the definition. And if you are really doing a study, and you should be doing a study on it, do a study, and especially, read the definition of Revelation 17. You should really understand who that man of sin is, that he is papacy. It's not just one man that comes at the end, but it's papacy. And guess what? The reformers knew that. They knew who papacy was, and they called him nickname Antichrist. This is where all this stuff is coming from. It's false interpretation. And then, of course, people, a Jesuit professor writing about Antichrist, one book about Antichrist, Francisco Rivera, and totally confusing the Protestants. Well, at the time, I'm sure the Protestant didn't read his book, but eventually it entered into this dispensationalism, in this dispensational teaching. That's where this teaching about Antichrist came from. And it's absolutely wrong. And if somebody would just do the study, I say it all the time, people, go to 1 John 2 and 4. And you will know. Do the study. Oh, then they're screaming, oh, but it says they're the Antichrist. No, that's a false translation. It talks about many. So translating as the or a or whatever is not correct. Because the rest of the text talks about plural, many. So that's the first error right there. Antichrist. Anytime you hear somebody talk about Antichrist, question that person. If he is not stuck in dispensationalism. See, there's many people that say, oh, we're not stuck in dispensationalism. No, we don't believe in the rapture. But that's the only thing they can say. Oh, we don't believe in the rapture. Because those are false teachers, again, that pick up these people that wake up when they're stuck in dispensationalism, but then they mislead them. And they're not cleaning up the rest of the stuff. No, they throw out the rapture, but hey, do they throw out Antichrist, which is not even, it doesn't exist, at least not the definition, that dispensationalism is using. Well, in combination with this Antichrist, we always have the third temple, right? Because that's part of it. That is part of what Francisco Rivera actually again wrote in his book. This Antichrist will sit in the temple, in the third temple. That's a lie. Yeah, we have this man of sin in 2 Thessalonians sitting himself into the temple of God. Yes, we have that. But if this man of sin is papacy, then we understand why this is the case. The Pope put himself as the head of the church. He threw out Jesus, the Holy Spirit. He set himself into the church as the head of the church, declaring, many of them, popes declaring themselves God. And that is no lie. And this is what the Bible is talking about. There's no need for a third temple. When we read Paul, and this is the problem with many people, they don't read Paul. There is no, or the Bible, period. But Paul says clearly what the temple is. 2 Ephesians 2. It tells you who the temple is. Every believer. So the church, the true church, is the temple of God. This is where Pope set himself into. The church. Not a building. There is no place in the Bible, no place. Well, somebody says, well, what about Revelation 11, when John was supposed to measure the temple? That was in heaven. Please, you need to read all the way to the end of the chapter 11. That's where you know where the temple is. It's in heaven. Every time John writes about the temple in Revelation, it's always in heaven. And so these are the two verses people always bring up. 2 Thessalonians 2 and Revelation 11. None other ones exist. But they're very easy to explain. So this third temple is not needed. Of course, what is in connection with this Antichrist and the third temple and, the Great Tribulation. 7-year Great Tribulation, right? I'll guarantee people that throw out the rapture, they have no idea that 7-year tribulation is false as well. And so we need to think about, where does that come from? Well, conveniently, people, they had to have these 7-year tribulation time because, this is when the Antichrist comes. This is when they rebuild the temple. And so before Jesus returns, that temple has to be rebuilt. This is all false. We just saw Antichrist is not somebody that comes at the end. We know who the players are. Well, papacy is here right now. A man of sin, the little horn, Babylon the Great. They are here. He has been here for 1700 years already. He put himself into the temple of God, declared himself God. I am here. I'm the head of the church. He is going to make the decisions alone. Nobody has the Holy Spirit to be able to discern what's right and wrong. And now we need the 7-year tribulation time. Why? Well, here it gets pretty interesting. What do we have in connection with this 7-year tribulation time? What is the 7-year tribulation time? How do they come up with 7-year tribulation time? Well, they do need that 7-year tribulation time. For what? For Zionism. For Christian Zionism. I just can't figure out what came first, of course, the chicken or the egg. But I believe since Francisco Ribeiro wrote his book, 1500 something, and he came up with this idea of Antichrist and the temple and these things, that came first. But then they realized, we need to have some support for this Zionism. Who did that? Well, I really believe it comes, of course, all comes from Satan. But I think it also comes through papacy. Because papacy is used. Papacy is the right hand of Satan. So it comes through papacy. The thinking. People say, it came from the Jew. No, I don't think so. Zionism did not come from the Jews. I believe it came from other sources. They sometimes they're saying, Protestantism, some Protestants. It's a complicated subject, and we're still going to have to continue, or I have to continue with my research. I just recently listened to a German video about a project, I think, Barbarossa, which was the war that Hitler waged against Russia. And the reason why he waged the war against Russia, He waged it because not the Bolsheviks or the communists, but specifically the Jewish communists, because he believed that the revolution, the communist revolution, Bolshevik revolution, was mainly caused by Jews. And that's why he wanted to destroy Bolshevism, communism. He did not like communism because communism tried to take over Germany. And so that's important to know. So this whole thing about a state for the Jews is, who knows, because they try to get rid of the Jews, in Europe all together. It's a complicated subject. It's a complicated subject, how this Zionism came about, but it's not as simple as people make it. But they had to justify it. They had to have the support of Christians, of people. And so they had to bring this Zionism, into this whole false religion, and they already prepared dispensationalism, so they might as well pack all this stuff together, all this falsehood, into one thing called dispensationalism. And it is based on, the Zionism, right, is really, they use the 7-year tribulation. And they had to make it up, people. You think about, this is so complicated. Do you think any human being made this up? You think any human being had a vision ahead of time? This is what we're going to do. We're going to have the Jews going into Palestine. We're going to use the Jew. We're going to do the Zionism, blah, blah, blah. They had to do this whole thing. Okay? They had to get everybody on board. And I believe dispensationalism was one way to do it, to get the support of Christians, because today most Christians believe this nonsense. So where is, again, this 7-year tribulation coming from? Well, they used Daniel 9. Okay? They used Daniel 9. And they absolutely misinterpreted. Instead of using Daniel 9 as itself to define the words, okay, specific words, they define them through their own, interpretation? They must have known that what they did is wrong. Okay, for instance, they used specific words in there like covenant. Okay, when it says the Prince of Peace, or the prince, it's the ruler or the prince, right, will make a covenant with many. And that's in Daniel 9, 26, 25, somewhere. Okay, you need to look it up. Look it up yourself. They misinterpret both words. For instance, they used a false definition for prince. Some translations use prince, and I think some ruler. But in the text, it is extremely clear who this prince is. Because it talks about the anointed one, who is the prince, okay? Who is the prince. Let's look at this. So in my translation, it is ruler is used, and I think I'm using the NIV. And it says in 25, "No one understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, we know that the anointed one, there is no confusion, there is no false interpretation. The anointed one is Messiah." Okay? We should know that from the Old Testament. There is No discussion about that. Then it says, until the anointed one. That means until Messiah is coming. The ruler. Okay? And then it gives specific time. Until that anointed one comes, the ruler, there will be, I think it was 69 weeks. That's what it says. 7, 62, and 7. So that's 69. But here they're defining ruler, who the ruler is. And then when we go to 26b, it says, the people of the ruler who will come. People, if it tells you up here the ruler is the anointed one, I cannot come up and say, well, that must be the Antichrist. I have to stick with the definition of the text. Okay? How else am I going to know? And then it says that ruler will destroy the temple the people will destroy the city. But he says, he will confirm a covenant with many. Again, who is confirming that covenant with many? Well, people assume it is the ruler. But even if the ruler is it, then Messiah will make the covenant. But in reality, this he refers to the subject, the single subject, in the verse before, which is the anointed one. So we have to always go by the text. And this anointed one makes a covenant with many. Now, can we make up covenant and say, well, it's a peace treaty? No, we have to stick again with the text. Okay, who is talking about a covenant? Where does Daniel have this idea from a covenant from? Who does he talk about in the beginning of this chapter? He talks about Jeremiah, learning from Jeremiah about these 70 weeks, right? Where do we see that? In 2. Given to Jeremiah the prophet. What kind of covenant did Jeremiah talk about? He's talking about the new covenant. The new covenant that is brought by Jesus, again, the Messiah. So everything fits together. So people, we cannot come up with our own explanation, with our own interpretation, but we have to stay with the text. But because people didn't do that and don't do that today, these false interpretations came in, and now they're going even further and saying, oh, because they got it all wrong, there is now this last week of Daniel left over. Okay, last week, 7 years. Even though this last year was fulfilled. Matter of fact, Jesus himself, if you read it, Jesus himself, when that anointed one comes on the scene, that will be at the end of the 69th week. So he will fulfill 3.5 years of that last week, because that's when his ministry starts. When his ministry starts, he comes on the scene. He is here 3.5 years of that last week. But it doesn't mean the last week is not finished. It means the disciples finished that covenant that he started. That means this covenant, which is the new covenant, which is the gospel, was preached to the Jews by Jesus himself, and then continued to be preached by the disciples. And when Stephen came around and told the Jews their mistakes and their history and them whoring around, they stoned him and finally rejected the new covenant. And this is when the covenant also went to the Gentiles. Doesn't mean the covenant did not go to the Jews anymore. The Jews rejected it. And that covenant still goes to the Jews, period. It goes to everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're Jew or Gentiles. It doesn't matter whether you're a Jew. It goes to everybody right now. No need for the Jews, whoever that is, to have extra time to accept Jesus. No. And believe me, they don't have time to start the old covenant because the old covenant is broken. So in other words, if they would rebuild a temple and start the sacrifice, that would be blasphemy. That would not going back to the old covenant. It would be blaspheming. It would be blaspheming God. And anybody who thinks that the Jews need a temple, they're encouraging this blaspheming, sacrilege, and whatever you call it, of the Jews. A lot of people do that. They finance all these things of the third temple. The third temple can't be. They are not Christians. These people are from Satan because they're encouraging ungodly things. The Old Testament was only a shadow until the new is coming. And the new is here for Jews and Gentiles. I don't want to go into detail, people, because my time is up and I'm not even done with all this stuff. And I need to address, but this is where this 7-year tribulation is coming from. And of course I need to continue with their false interpretation. Oh, then Matthew 24, that first part, all the way to 28, is all about this Great Tribulation, when it is really about the destruction of the temple. Oh, and then we have this fig tree generation, and this fig tree is, Israel being blooming again. People, when a fig tree is dead, it's dead. It's dead. It's cut off and thrown into the fire. Do you understand? It's cut off and thrown in the fire. It doesn't bloom anymore. But that fig tree in Matthew 24 that is blooming was a regular fig tree. It was not a dead fig tree. It was just a regular fig tree. And Jesus said, look at the fig tree and all other trees. That's what Luke says. If they're blooming, you know what time of the year it is. And if you know that, then you should know what time it is when we're going towards the end times. That's all he said. But no, people have to misinterpret one thing after another. Now, we all have to understand these things because they will mislead us. Jews are not saved any other way. People, the whole thing about the teaching of Abraham and Moses and the prophet is to tell them their Messiah is coming. Who's Messiah? The Hebrews' Messiah. The Hebrews' Messiah was supposed to be coming for them. And the 70 years is just another, they had another chance. And they blew it. They blew it, people. And no, the Gentiles were not exchanged for the Hebrews. No. It's just the gospel went to both of them. Now both of them, again, Ephesians 2, this new man that is made up of Gentiles, Jews and Gentiles. Why only Jews and Gentiles? What happened to the Hebrews? Simple. Remember, 10 tribes of Israel were lost anyways. They were scattered amongst the heathens. So now whoever is amongst the heathen, any tribe of Israel is amongst the heathen, so it doesn't matter, because anybody who accepts Jesus is saved. You don't have to be of any of the tribes. The true Israel of God are believers in Messiah. That's bottom line. They are believers in Messiah. Those are the true Israel of God. Israel is the father, or Abram is the father of all believers. It has nothing to do with your birth, your ethical group, your genetics, whatever. No, it has to do with faith. Do you believe in Jesus or you don't? Do you believe in the Messiah or you don't? Do you believe in the new covenant or you don't? And people, everything else is misleading people. This whole thing about the harping, about Israel being from God. Right now, Israel is not from God. There is no way. They reject the Father, they reject the Son. Or should I say they reject the Son and they then reject the Father. So they are not really worshiping the Father. They're not really worshiping the God of Isaac, Abraham, Moses, and the prophets. They don't. I don't know what they're worshiping, but it's not what Moses or Isaac or Abraham was teaching, or the prophets. This whole thing about dispensationalism is false. Now that does not mean we can throw out the rapture. I have not said anything about the rapture, have I? No, the rapture is in itself not false, but it's placed in the false context. Okay? It's not, tribulation is not before a 7-year tribulation time. Doesn't happen. Okay? No, that's wrong. The rapture is before the wrath of God. And dispensationalism does not talk about the wrath of God at all. Some people, they confuse the tribulation time with the wrath of God. But it's false. Okay? It's false. There has nothing in common whatsoever. Nothing. The wrath of God is described in Revelation 16. There's one place. In Revelation 8 through 11. And it is a time after the rapture. It's the beginning of the day of the Lord. And this is when God punishes or destroys this ungodly system. This whole ungodly system. He destroys the ungodly. He has to do that in order to rule. He has to destroy the system, the worldly system we have today. And that worldly system, people, is every political system in this world. Of course, most of all, the false prophet, which is the United States. No, the United States is not going to survive because it's corrupt to the bone. And it will be destroyed in the Armageddon war. Matter of fact, very many people will be destroyed during the wrath of God. And we're going towards that. And they don't teach that either. Dispensational doesn't teach that. They harp about this, great tribulation, great tribulation. And most people, even when they throw out the rapture, they don't throw everything out. They continue with the Antichrist. They continue with all that nonsense. I'm coming to an end, people. I hope this has helped. I hope this has helped. No, the rapture is not something... Now remember, I understand the word is not in the Bible, but it doesn't matter. We're talking about the event. Look at the definition. 1 Thessalonians 4. That's the event when Jesus comes and picks up his bride. When the dead are resurrected, and those who are still alive will be snatched out and be with the Lord in 1 second, in a twinkling of an eye. That's that event. And many call that rapture. Okay? Rapture is a word that didn't exist maybe 100 years ago, or else they would have used it. But it didn't exist. They used caught up. Who cares? As long as you describe the correct event. But I'm coming to an end. People, if you have still questions, let me know. And also let the Holy Spirit guide you.